Sometimes one truth can change everything. When Amy stands in the quiet ranch morning, her heart carries a secret too heavy to hide any longer. The horses sense it. The air feels still. She knows that today, she can't keep running from the truth about Gracie. The sun has just begun to rise over Heartland, painting the sky in soft shades of gold and pink. The ranch looks peaceful, but inside Amy's heart, a storm is brewing. She moves slowly through the barn, brushing Spartan's mane, her hands trembling just a little. Each stroke feels like a small attempt to calm her nerves. The horse snorts softly, as if he understands her silence. For days now, Amy has been trying to act normal, to laugh with Jack, to help Lindy with her morning chores, to keep Nathan from noticing how distant she's become. But no matter how hard she tries, the truth keeps pushing its way to the surface. Nathan has always been kind, patient, and open-hearted. He doesn't ask for much, but he values honesty more than anything. And that's what scares Amy the most. She knows that when she finally tells him the truth about Gracie, there's no going back. She can already imagine the look in his eyes, the quiet pain, the confusion. Still, she knows that keeping it inside any longer will only make it worse. The guilt has begun to shape her every move, her every word. Even Jack has started to notice something's off, but he hasn't said anything yet. Maybe he's waiting for her to find her own courage. As Amy steps out of the barn, she feels the chill of the morning air. It cuts through her jacket, reminding her that some truths are cold no matter how you say them. She watches the horses in the pasture, free and unburdened. For a moment, she wishes she could be like them, able to run away from the weight she carries. But then she hears Nathan's voice in the distance, calling her name. It's gentle, familiar, and full of warmth. The kind of voice that makes her heart ache because she knows what she's about to do might break it. Amy turns to face him. Nathan is walking toward her with that easy smile he always wears, the one that used to calm her. He's holding 2 mugs of coffee, steam curling up into the cold morning air. Thought you might need this, he says. She forces a small smile, taking the cup, her fingers brushing his. For a second, everything feels normal again. But as he looks into her eyes, that feeling fades. Nathan notices the distance in her gaze. You've been quiet lately, he says softly. Is everything okay? Amy opens her mouth to answer, but no words come. Her throat tightens, and her heart beats faster. She wants to say yes, to lie one more time, but something inside her refuses. Maybe it's the way the morning light hits the ranch, or the sound of the horses, or maybe it's just time. She looks down at her coffee, then back at Nathan, and all she can manage to say is, I need to tell you something. Something important. Nathan studies her face, worry replacing his smile. He sets down his coffee and takes a small step closer. You're scaring me, Amy. What is it? She doesn't answer right away. The moment stretches, heavy and silent, filled with everything she's been afraid to say. She takes a deep breath, her eyes wet with unshed tears. It's about Gracie, she whispers. And just like that, the air between them changes. The world feels quieter, the distance greater. Nathan blinks, confused, waiting for her to go on. But Amy turns away, unable to face the truth just yet. As the wind sweeps across the fields, Amy realizes this is the beginning of the hardest conversation of her life. She knows she has to tell him everything, but not yet. Not until she finds the right words and the right strength. Because some truths, even when they set you free, can shatter what you love most. Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The days at Heartland had started to feel heavier, slower, as if time itself was waiting for Amy to speak. He noticed the little things first, the way she avoided his eyes when they talked, how she smiled without meaning it, how her laughter sounded thin and uncertain. There was a distance in her voice now, like she was somewhere else even when she stood right in front of him. Nathan had spent enough time with Amy to know when something was wrong. But this time, it wasn't just worry, it was fear. He could feel it between them like a cold wind. That morning, after their half-finished conversation by the barn, Nathan couldn't focus. He replayed Amy's words in his mind. It's about Gracie. The name echoed through him. What about Gracie? What was Amy trying to tell him? The thought followed him everywhere, from the stables to the fields, from feeding the horses to fixing the fence. Even Jack noticed how distracted he was and asked if everything was all right. Nathan forced a quick smile, saying he was just tired. But Jack's sharp eyes said he didn't believe a word of it. As the afternoon light faded, Nathan found himself wandering toward the paddock where Gracie stood, calm and still. The horse looked up at him with gentle eyes, unaware of the storm she was caught in. He ran a hand down her neck, his chest tightening. "What's going on, girl?" he murmured. Gracie nickered softly, her breath warm against his hand. Nathan had always trusted his instincts, and right now, they told him that Amy's silence was tied to this horse and maybe something deeper inside the house. Amy sat at the kitchen table with Lou, pretending to read a list of chores. Her mind was miles away. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Nathan's face, the confusion in his eyes when she said Gracie's name. Lou tried to make small talk, but Amy barely heard her. When Lou finally asked if she was all right, Amy nodded quickly and said she was fine, but the lie burned in her throat. She knew she couldn't keep this up much longer. The truth was creeping closer, demanding to be spoken. Later that evening, Nathan returned to the house. The smell of supper lingered in the air, but no one felt hungry. He walked in quietly, watching Amy from the doorway. She was standing by the window, staring out at the fading light. For a moment, he thought about saying nothing, pretending everything was fine, but that wasn't him. He had lost too much in life to live with half-truths. "Amy," he said softly, his voice steady but low, "you said something earlier about Gracie. What did you mean?" Amy froze. She didn't turn around. Her reflection in the glass showed the conflict in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Nathan stepped closer, not out of anger, but out of desperation. "If there's something I should know, please tell me," he said. "You don't have to protect me from the truth." Amy finally turned to face him. Her lips parted, but her words stumbled. "I've been meaning to tell you for a while now," she said slowly, her voice breaking. "But I didn't know how. I was afraid of what it might do to us." Nathan's heart pounded in his chest. "Us?" he repeated, his brow furrowed. "Amy, whatever it is, we'll face it together." The way he said it, so sure, so full of belief, almost broke her. She wanted to hold on to that hope, but she knew it wouldn't last once he heard the truth. The silence stretched between them again, heavy with everything unsaid. Nathan looked at her, searching her face for answers she couldn't give. Finally, she whispered, "It's about what really happened the day Gracie was born." The words hung in the air like a storm about to break. Nathan blinked, confused, trying to understand. Before he could ask, Amy turned away, tears glistening in her eyes. "Please," she said, "not tonight." Nathan nodded slowly, but his mind was already racing. Something had shifted again, something deep and irreversible. He didn't know what Amy was hiding, but he could feel the truth closing in around them both. As the night settled over Heartland, Nathan stood by the window long after she'd gone upstairs, watching the stars fade into the darkness, wondering what tomorrow would bring and if their love could survive what Amy was too afraid to say. The next morning broke softer than usual, but the stillness carried a kind of warning. The sky was pale and quiet, and the sound of horses moving in the distance seemed sharper, clearer. Amy stood near the corral, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. She hadn't slept. Every hour of the night had been spent rehearsing what she needed to say, and every time, the words had failed her. The truth she carried felt like a knot in her chest, too tangled to loosen, yet too heavy to ignore. She knew she couldn't delay it any longer. Nathan found her there, leaning on the fence, her eyes lost somewhere far beyond the fields. He didn't speak right away. He simply stood beside her, close enough that she could feel his presence but not his touch. The silence between them wasn't peaceful anymore. It was thick with waiting. Finally, Nathan said, "You didn't sleep either, did you?" His voice was gentle, but his eyes searched her face for something she didn't want him to see. Amy shook her head. "No, I kept thinking about yesterday." She paused, her voice thin. "About what I said." Nathan's heart tightened. "About Gracie," he said quietly. She nodded, her fingers gripping the wooden rail. For a moment, All she could hear was the creak of the fence and the steady rhythm of her heartbeat. Then she took a breath that trembled in her chest. "There's something you don't know," she began. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." Nathan turned toward her fully now, his brow furrowed, his hands slipping into his pockets as if bracing himself. "Whatever it is, just tell me," he said. His voice was calm, but she could hear the worry underneath. Amy hesitated, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The ranch looked peaceful, almost too peaceful for the kind of truth she was about to speak. She felt her throat tighten again, but this time she forced the words out. "When Gracie was born," she said slowly, "things didn't happen the way everyone thinks they did. There were mistakes, choices I made that changed everything." Nathan blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" Amy turned to him, her eyes glistening. "Gracie isn't who you think she is," she said. Her voice broke halfway through the sentence. "I thought I could protect everyone by keeping it quiet, but all I did was build a wall between us." Nathan's face went pale. He took a small step back, his breath catching in his throat. "Amy, what are you saying?" he asked, his voice low and uneven. She swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "I'm saying I wasn't honest about her father," she whispered. The words hit like a gust of cold wind. For a long moment, Nathan didn't move. His mind raced, replaying every memory, every moment that suddenly felt different under this new light. Amy could see the pain in his eyes, and it shattered her. "I didn't mean to lie," she said quickly. "I was scared. I thought I was doing the right thing." Her voice cracked with every word. "You were there for me, for her, and I wanted to believe that was enough. But I couldn't live with the truth hiding inside me anymore." Nathan's jaw tightened. He didn't shout. He didn't turn away. He just stood there, the silence stretching between them like a wound. "So all this time," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "all this time you've been carrying this alone?" Amy nodded, tears spilling freely now. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said, "but keeping it from you has been worse." The sound of a horse neighing cut through the still air, sharp and sudden. It was as if the world itself reacted to her words. Nathan turned his gaze toward the corral, his eyes unfocused, lost in thought. "I wish you'd trusted me," he said finally. "You could have told me from the beginning." Amy's voice trembled. "I know, and I'm sorry. I can't change the past, but I want to be honest now, no more secrets." Nathan didn't respond right away. His eyes glistened, but no tears fell. After a long pause, he said quietly, "The truth doesn't erase the love, Amy, but it changes it." Then he walked past her, slowly, his footsteps crunching on the gravel, leaving a space between them that felt endless. Amy stayed there, frozen, the wind tugging at her hair, her heart aching with the weight of what she had finally spoken. The confession left a quiet that no sound could fill. By the time the sun began to set, the sky over Heartland burned with streaks of orange and violet, but the beauty of it only deepened the ache in Amy's chest. She sat alone on the porch steps, her hands clasped together, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Every creak of the wood beneath her feet seemed to echo what she felt inside, fragile, uncertain, ready to break. The truth was finally out, but it hadn't brought peace. It had only opened wounds that might take a long time to heal. Inside, the house was heavy with unspoken words. Lou had heard enough to sense that something serious had happened. When she stepped outside and saw Amy's expression, she didn't ask questions right away. She simply sat beside her sister, letting the silence stretch. For a long time, the only sounds were the soft hum of the wind and the faint whinny of a horse in the distance. Finally, Lou said, "You told him, didn't you?" Amy nodded slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "He knows everything." Lou sighed, her gaze lowering. "How did he take it?" Amy swallowed hard before answering. "He didn't yell. He didn't get angry. He just walked away." She paused, her voice trembling. "That's what hurts the most. The quiet." Lou nodded, understanding. "Sometimes silence speaks louder than words, Ames." But she did what she had to do. Secrets never stay buried. Not here. Not with people who love you. While the sisters sat outside, Jack watched them from the window, his weathered face lined with concern. He'd lived long enough to know that truth always comes with a cost. He stepped outside, the screen door creaking softly behind him. "Amy," he said in that calm, steady tone of his. "I'm proud of you." Amy looked up, confused. "Proud?" she repeated, her voice small. Jack nodded. "Telling the truth takes more courage than hiding it. You did what was right, even if it hurts now." His words carried the quiet wisdom of someone who had seen enough heartbreak to know that healing doesn't come easy. Nathan didn't return to the house that night. He stayed out by the pasture, near Gracie's stall, where the stars reflected faintly in the horse's eyes. He stood there in silence, replaying Amy's words over and over. He wanted to be angry, but the anger couldn't take root. All he could feel was sadness, a deep, aching kind that settled into his bones. Gracie nudged him softly, her breath warm against his arm, as if reminding him that love doesn't vanish when trust breaks. It only changes shape. Back at the porch, Amy finally spoke again. "I don't know if he'll forgive me," she said quietly. "Maybe I don't deserve it." Jack looked at her with the kind of patience only he could manage. "Forgiveness isn't about deserving," he said. "It's about understanding. And Nathan, he's got a good heart. Give him time." Amy nodded, though she wasn't sure she believed it yet. As the night deepened, the ranch fell into its usual rhythm, the soft rustle of leaves, the steady chirp of crickets, the faint glow from the barn's lantern. But for Amy, nothing felt the same. Every familiar sound carried a different weight now. The truth was out, and with it, her world had shifted. Yet beneath the sadness, there was something else, a quiet sense of release. The burden she had carried for so long was no longer hers alone. The next morning, Nathan returned to the house. His eyes were tired, his expression unreadable. Amy stood by the doorway, unsure whether to speak. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Nathan said softly, "I don't know what comes next, but I'm still here." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was something real. Amy nodded, tears filling her eyes again. But this time they weren't only from pain. Heartland had seen storms before: loss, love, and second chances, and had always found a way to heal. Amy knew this would take time, maybe more than either of them expected, but the first step had been taken. The truth was no longer a secret whispered in her heart. It was a path they would walk together, one fragile step at a time. The morning after the storm of truth was not filled with tears or shouting. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after a deep wound has stopped bleeding but hasn't begun to heal. The air around Heartland felt different, lighter in some ways, but fragile, as though one wrong word could break the calm that had just begun to settle. Amy stood by the paddock, watching the sunrise over the hills. The sky glowed softly, and for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel the weight of a lie pressing down on her chest. What replaced it was uncertainty, raw and trembling, but also honest. Gracie trotted near the fence, her mane catching the light like strands of gold. Amy reached out her hand, letting the horse's soft breath brush against her palm. "You've always known, haven't you?" she whispered. The horse blinked, calm and silent. Amy smiled faintly. "You always could feel what I couldn't say." She felt tears threaten again, but blinked them back. She was done with crying in secret, done with hiding behind the safety of silence. Behind her, the sound of footsteps on gravel made her turn. Nathan was there, his hands in his jacket pockets, his face still shadowed by doubt. But his eyes, those soft, steady eyes, no longer looked angry. They looked tired, searching, and full of questions. Amy froze, unsure whether to speak. Nathan broke the silence first. "I couldn't sleep," he said. His voice was rough, like it had been dragged through the night. "I kept thinking about what you said." Amy nodded, her throat tight. "I didn't expect you to understand," she said quietly. "I just needed you to know." Nathan stepped closer, his boots crunching on the frost-covered ground. "You were right to tell me," he said, "even if it hurt. I just wish I'd known sooner." He paused, his eyes softening. "You did what you thought was right, Amy. Maybe that's enough for now." The words sank deep, gentle, and forgiving. Amy didn't know what to say, so she just nodded again, her lips trembling. The space between them no longer felt like a wall, more like a bridge, fragile but real. Nathan looked at Gracie, who stood watching them quietly, ears flicking in the crisp air. "She's strong," he said. just like her mother. Amy smiled faintly at that, the kind of smile that comes from both pain and relief. As they stood there, side by side, the world seemed to breathe again. The tension that had haunted the ranch for days began to ease, little by little. Jack watched from the porch, his arms crossed, a knowing look in his eyes. He didn't say anything, he didn't have to. He'd seen this before, the moment after the truth, when people either fall apart or find a way to stand together. And he could see that Amy and Nathan were trying to stand. Evening settled over Heartland like a sigh, gentle, quiet, and full of things that didn't need to be said anymore. The barn lights glowed faintly against the darkening sky, and the air smelled of hay and rain. For the first time in weeks, Amy didn't feel like she was hiding. The truth had shaken her world, but now that it was out, the silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. It was the kind of silence that heals. She stood at the edge of the paddock, her hand resting on the wooden fence, watching Nathan and Gracie from a distance. He moved slowly, brushing the mare's coat, his movements careful, thoughtful. There was no tension in him now, no anger, just quiet understanding. Every stroke of the brush seemed to say what neither of them had been able to find words for. Forgiveness doesn't always come through speech, sometimes it comes through staying. And Nathan had stayed. Amy's thoughts drifted back to all the nights she'd spent afraid of this moment, terrified that the truth would tear them apart. But now, seeing him there, calm and present, she understood something new. Love wasn't just about keeping someone close. It was about being honest, even when honesty hurt. It was about letting the other person see your scars and trusting they wouldn't walk away. The porch light flickered on, and Jack stepped out, his familiar silhouette framed by the glow. "You two gonna stand out there all night?" he called, his voice steady, with a hint of teasing warmth. Nathan looked up and smiled faintly, nodding before leading Gracie back into the stable. Amy turned toward Jack, her heart easing a little. "She's starting to trust him again," she said softly. Jack nodded. "That's how it starts. A little trust at a time." When Nathan walked up to join them, his eyes met Amy's for a long moment. There was still pain there, but it wasn't sharp anymore. It had softened into something real. "She's calmer now," he said. "Maybe because you finally told the truth." Amy smiled faintly. "Maybe because I finally told myself too." He didn't answer, but the look he gave her said more than words ever could. Later that night, when the ranch had gone still and the stars stretched wide across the dark sky, Amy sat on the porch steps again. The wooden boards were cool beneath her hands, and the night air was soft. Nathan joined her without a word, sitting close but not touching. The silence between them wasn't empty, it was full of new beginnings. "I used to think truth only breaks things," Amy said after a while, her voice low. "But maybe it just shows us what's worth rebuilding." Nathan nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "And what's strong enough to stay standing?" For a long time, they sat there like that, two people who had lost and found each other in the same breath. The ranch lights flickered, the wind rustled the leaves, and somewhere out in the dark, Gracie whinnied softly, a sound that felt like peace. Amy turned her head slightly, catching Nathan's reflection in the window beside them. "Do you ever think we'll go back to how things were?" she asked quietly. Nathan shook his head. "No," he said simply, "but maybe we're not supposed to." She thought about that for a moment, then nodded. "Maybe this is better," she whispered. "More real." Nathan smiled, small, tired, but honest. "Yeah," he said. "Real's good." And with that, they sat in the quiet, watching the stars fade into the deep blue of night. The pain hadn't vanished. The past hadn't changed. But the truth had made space for something new, something fragile but alive. The camera would fade slowly here, the ranch bathed in moonlight. Amy and Nathan sitting side by side, two silhouettes against the soft glow of the horizon. In the distance, a horse runs free across the open field, its movement smooth and certain. It's not running away anymore. It's running towards something new. Heartland. Endings never really mean goodbye. They're just quiet beginnings dressed as silence. The wind moves softly through the open fields of Heartland, carrying with it the echoes of everything that has happened. The ranch looks the same, the fences, the barns, the wide sky stretching endless above, but something inside those quiet spaces has changed forever. Truth has a way of rearranging things. It doesn't destroy, it reshapes. And that's what Amy has come to understand. In the still glow of early morning, Amy stands near the paddock again. Gracie runs freely across the open field, her hooves kicking up small clouds of dust that glitter in the light. Amy's eyes follow her, not with sadness this time, but with peace. The fear that once sat heavy in her heart has turned into something lighter, something almost freeing. Because even though truth can hurt, it also heals just slower, quieter, and deeper than anyone expects. Nathan joins her, his steps soft against the earth. He doesn't speak at first. He just stands beside her, both of them watching the same horizon. There's a kind of comfort in that, in knowing that words aren't needed anymore. Their silence no longer feels cold. It feels honest. It's the silence that exists between two people who have survived something together. Amy turns to him, the corners of her lips curving gently. "Do you think things will ever feel normal again?" she asks, her voice small but steady. Nathan's gaze stays fixed on the horizon. "Maybe not the way they used to," he says. "But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is what normal's supposed to be." The sunlight warms their faces, and for a brief moment, everything feels still, not perfect, but peaceful. The kind of peace that comes after you stop running from the truth. Amy takes a deep breath, the air tasting new. She knows there will still be hard days ahead, still moments of doubt and ache, but she also knows that honesty has made them stronger. The truth hasn't ruined them. It's remade them. The camera would pan out slowly now, the ranch stretching wide, bathed in morning gold. Gracie gallops through the pasture, free and untamed, a reflection of everything Amy has learned to be. The music rises gently, not dramatic but tender, full of warmth and quiet hope, and over that, the narrator's voice begins to fade in calm, steady, full of meaning. Sometimes the hardest truths lead us back to the simplest things: honesty, love, and the courage to begin again. Heartland has always been more than a place. It's a reminder that no matter how far we fall, there's always a way back home. As the final words echo, the screen softens into the light of dawn. The music lingers, a slow, hopeful melody before fading completely into the sound of wind brushing through the grass. The image of Amy and Nathan remains for a few seconds longer, two silhouettes against a rising sun, no longer haunted by what was hidden, but standing in what's real. Then the final line appears on screen, simple and true. "The truth may break you, but it also sets you free." Fade to black.